Hello, hello, and welcome back. Welcome back to another stream with Humble Devs and with getting our application built and up and running. So let me okay. So audio is fine. Stream is live. All right. Great, great. So let's get going with today's stream. All right, all right. So, um, we ended last week with having our application launched, right? So we used Vercel, we pushed it online. It was launched. We could actually use it, and we can still. So my little app is here. At least these are the metrics. I visited it a bit earlier today because, I mean, yeah, you can see the trends over time. Not really much happening there. But the application itself is here. So this is the web address. I'm logged in as one of the users, and we have everything up and running, right? So yeah, that's fine. Um, and great, but what do we do when we want to continue building? Now, before I dive into the continuous of building our application, so you've built your app, right? Or at least your version one of the app, and you've launched it, and now people have signed up, or like you're using it yourself with the friends, family, colleagues, whoever it may be. However, you do want to update your app, so you want to create new builds and you want to publish these builds. Um, and there are, of course, two approaches, right? You can say, okay, fine, I have my project in VS Code or in any other code editor. I'm just going to continue editing that and move right along. And uh, hopefully, I don't break something um, while I'm doing that, right? So this would be not a very tactical approach because the chance of you breaking something or like some of the changes that you've made having effects that you didn't account for or that you didn't simply test yourself to experience is of course high. And the more changes you make, the more things you have potentially broken without realizing. And then your users will find this out once they actually test it, right? And this is the one of the reasons why using the agent, the developer agent, to implement tests is very important. And this is something that's already a part of the BMAT method. So if you're using that, it is already covered. So by the end of it, it will ask you, do you want me to go ahead and implement the test suite? And you're like, yeah, sure, go ahead. It will suggest a testing library to use because it will already cover most of the use cases for the web applications that we're building. So that's perfectly fine. And the developer by default will target to have at least 80% of their tests pass before they consider a task being completed, right? And it's a good practice to uphold because you're not doing the effort yourself, right? So if you're trying to develop an application that you're trying to launch, you could, theoretically speaking, spend as much time testing your application as developing it. And at some point, you might like never get to actually releasing it, which would not be great. But this is unfortunately the reality of many projects that developers start building, and then at some point you kind of get sidetracked, and you maybe lose interest or find that the application that you've built doesn't really do the thing that you wanted it to do from the beginning, and you don't really have the time to fix all of that or try or like start from scratch. But again, using the developer agent to actually build your application and test it is very, very important, because afterwards, what you would normally do is branch out into different branches and then start adding features, and then fully develop the feature in a completely separate branch, which will still allow you to, for example, fix broken things in your main branch, right? Because in our development environment, our current branch is main, right? So here you can see the information of our Git and where it's pointing to. So the remote Git location, we're working with main. And when we go to our, um, oh, so when we go to our GitHub project, you see that we are here also on branch main. There is currently no other branch. So if you open the branches, there's just one. But we can create as many branches as we need. Now, we don't want, of course, to create branches that will make things complex for us. So the reasons that you would create your branch are mostly to make sure that you have your um, new features being developed in a separate um, branch altogether. So consider it like a separate project, which will be a copy of your main, and then you start altering that. So you make your edits, you ask your PM to create all of the new tasks for the things that you're missing. You have the developer agent implement all of these, test them. You can test them locally, and you can also push these, and not only push them but also have these be deployed on Vercel. And the difference being that whenever you are not on the main branch, Vercel will of course see that, and your branch that is deployed not in main will be deployed as a developer build. So no one can go and visit that address. So it will have a separate address from your like main branch. So you can go there, and as long as you are logged in to Vercel with your admin account, you can open the app and you can test it and you can validate it yourself and run through everything that the user would be able to do. But no normal user could just visit that address and log into your app, so to speak. And then when you're done, we'll be basically merging the two. So we have your branch for the development of your new feature, as well as the main branch. And what we normally do is basically um, pull the main branch into our now development branch, or like the feature branch, and basically merge the two through a merge request. And then when we merge them, um, Git will look at all of the differences, but also our build will be compared to make sure that nothing is broken. So if we're merging with main and there are some conflicting functionalities or like functions that we use, or specific like variable names or assignments or whatnot that we have in our project, these will be highlighted that these are conflicts that we need to solve, and then we can go ahead and like solve all of these to make sure that nothing breaks in the new version that also includes the new functionality that we've added. And then we can push it back to main. So the feature branch or the new development branch will then become basically main together with all of the new features. We'll push that again to main and deploy it um, as our main application, right? So this is something that's very important to do, and we'll go through that process today, just to show how that works and how to avoid breaking something that's already functional, because the chance of doing that is quite high, especially with the use of AI. So it might seem that it's giving you superpowers, but it can also be super powerful in breaking your build in ways that you can't fix, or at least not easily. And especially if you are not adept at troubleshooting and understanding what changes the AI has made, um, then it can be quite difficult to go back from like a couple of commands that you might have written, or you might have already saved some of it or committed some of it, which can be a bit problematic. And that's why the approach of BMAT, for example, and like breaking up everything into little like subtasks and having these implemented one by one gives you a point of like, okay, this is something that you can check and validate, The dev agent can check that and validate that. And if you're happy with it, you can just commit it, push it, and that's kind of a safe point for you to return to. So if the next task is being deployed and an AI just completely breaks everything, you can just discard everything that they've done and try again. Okay. Now, having said that, I do want to go back to a point that I made last week, but I think it's very, very important for you to understand that when you're building your app. So currently, our tech stack is basically we're using Next.js, which is a framework that has the ability to do front end and back end, right? Um, which is great. We're using Vercel, which is built by the company that also makes Next.js. So they are a perfect pairing where you can also have analytics that are built in, where the build process is automated for you from GitHub, like you've already seen last week. We implemented the analytics that shows us like where our visitors are coming from and where they're going to and whatnot. Actually, I think I forgot to share the application link last week. So let me just drop that very quickly. Okay, so I'm just gonna add this very quickly to Discord. All right. Cool. So that is all fine. And now, all right. So we have insights. There is actually more insights. So we just implemented the general analytics, which is great. There is also speed insights. And if you remember, it also like pinged us about this not too long ago. I didn't enable it back then because it's not really the starting point that I was looking to make. We looked into a plugin to Chrome that is called Lighthouse. And I showed this because it shows you an entire breakdown of your website's performance. It gives you like all kinds of metrics for interaction points for users, your SEO, so your search engine optimization, as well as accessibility, best practices, and you name it, right? Which is great. Now, Vercel also provides you this out of the box by using speed insights. So this is a functionality that you can enable for your project. And again, this doesn't really cost us anything. It has a limited amount of like usage for your project. And this also needs to be implemented. So it's also saying that, okay, great. You have to install this as a package. You also have to add this to your layout file of your project so that this is actually functional, right? And what this does is it will allow you to basically get reporting like Lighthouse would provide you, but continuously. So with Lighthouse, you have to like load the app, you have to generate reports at that point in time. But Speed Insight on Vercel basically measures the responsiveness of your website while the customers are using it. And it will also generate graphs to show you that, okay, you have a specific page that takes a long time to load. And it is because you have like a large image file that needs to be loaded, right? So consider using a different file format that's much smaller to load so that your users can download the file much quicker and view your page faster, right? Or you have a JavaScript file that runs a lot of logic in the background that's holding the loading of the app or the page so that it will tell you, okay, maybe lazy load that JavaScript or put it all the way at the end of your content so that everything loads and then the JavaScript can run in the background while the user is already looking at the page, right? So yeah, it will get you quite a lot of insight. Now we don't really have a lot of views on our page yet, so this would really not provide us a whole lot of information. Plus, our application is super simple. Like there's barely anything that needs to be loaded apart from HTML, CSS, and a bit of JavaScript. So our application is maybe not something that would benefit greatly from these insights. But if you're building any app that gets used by users, having this kind of tool built in and gives you at least some free use will already give you a lot of feedback that is very valuable in the beginning when you're like still just like building your app or deploying new functionality to show you how things are going. Okay. And apart from that, we need to just slightly talk about the like avoiding vendor lock-in, because at the moment, as you already know, we use Next.js. We use Vercel. Now, Vercel can easily be replaced, so this is not really a big problem. We already spoke about Coolify last week. I'll repeat that in just a bit. However, when we're using Supabase, which is still great, there are two limitations that we have. Supabase only provides us with 500 megabyte of storage, and this is storage in general. You can use it as a disk, but also it counts as storage for your database. So if your database does grow significantly, you will use a part of that 500 megabyte for your database storage. And in our application, when we were building, if you remember, it was talking about setting the sorry, I lost the word now. The rule set for Vercel itself, which is basically row level access, right? That's what it's called, which is fine, right? But this is a Supabase kind of specific functionality. This doesn't apply to all SQL databases. Actually, it applies to hardly any SQL database outside of Supabase itself. So this is a functionality that Supabase uses. So for us, having our application strictly communicate and save information inside of Supabase is fine for a small scale. However, if our application would grow significantly and we're like, okay, we are maybe okay with paying a little monthly subscription for Supabase and we keep everything as is. However, you might think, okay, I would like to migrate my database to another service, right? This is where you'll have some problems because you can just you can just extract all of your data as a SQL database. However, the row level access is going to be tied into the information in your configuration, right? Which is something that you can't migrate somewhere else. So in order to avoid the vendor lock-in, what you could do is still use Supabase, but use it through is through an ORM, right? So the and Prisma is one of the like leading providers of that, and it acts as a middle layer between an object-oriented program, like the one that we're building, and a relational database, which is SQL or SQL. So basically, what it provides you is a way to also host your project for free with also some limitations, very similar to the ones that are provided by Supabase. The difference is that the SQL setup will be very vanilla, if I may put it like that. So it will be like plain SQL. It won't have any proprietary functionality from Supabase. And the Prisma ORM allows you to basically configure your database, and it will act as a middle layer between your application and Supabase. The power that it provides you, because it brings in complexity, right? Because now instead of having only Supabase, you also have Prisma in the middle. The power that it provides you is that at some point, if you're like, okay, I want to host my own server. So maybe you're like, okay, on Hetzner, I can like rent a server for as little as like $5 or €5 a month. I'll add some storage for a couple of dollars a month, and then I have a server that I can run. I can run my database off there. I can have storage that suffices for my use. And I want to migrate away from using Supabase altogether, right? With Prisma, you can just give it the address of your own hosted URL, and then nothing changes. You're like, okay, the database URL was Supabase, right? Now not anymore. So I'm migrating my database away from that to the new database that I've set up, or you can migrate to a different service. And on your application, nothing changes. So you still have, of course, to migrate your data, which is fine. But then because you're not using any Supabase proprietary like technology or like rules or like code in general, you don't have to worry about it. So you take all of your SQL databases, you migrate these to your self-hosted database or to a different service. And in Prisma, you just say, okay, this is now the database that I want to talk to, and your application functions the same. You don't have to go through the database setup again. You don't have to validate your entire application just to make sure that nothing is broken. And also the scaling and price for Prisma is relatively light. So you can get quite a lot of use just on the free tier. And even if you get significant use on your application, just having the starter package should be more than enough. And if your application really, really grows and you need something more, then your application should be making plenty of money to cover for the additional cost. And then when it comes to hosting something for yourself, again, I said this last week, but I think it's important to reiterate. So the development power that Vercel gives us, so the automated deployments and the like the metrics and the nice user interface and whatnot, is not exclusive to Vercel, not at all. So Coolify is a free self-hosting platform. So basically, if you rent out a server on any like reputable VPS hosting company, you will be able to deploy Coolify for yourself. So you can just install Coolify, or they will generally already had a profile to set up Coolify already on by default for yourself. And Coolify you can just use to configure your development environment, or better said, your hosting environment, similar to what we did in Vercel and to many of the applications that are similar to Vercel in their functionality. So it will also allow you to deploy your database and have your GitHub project being pulled whenever whenever you're pushing something to it. So it will run your build, it will host your application based on the configuration that you've provided. And yeah, so that is a way to go. Just an option, right? So if you're building a serious application, I would advise going this route to using Prisma and to avoid using purely Supabase. But you could. So if you're like, okay, I'm just building an app like for a hobby or like for a small user base, I'm not expecting this to like grow. I'm not going to market this. I'm not building this app because I want to gain like thousands of users. Then building it just using Supabase and avoiding the extra complexity is going to be fine, because again, you don't expect a lot of scale, you don't expect a lot of use. Again, like at some point, if Supabase would say like, okay, we don't want to give the free tier anymore, we're locking everyone out, and they give you like a 6-month period or even a year period, and after that you have to pay even for minimal usage, then at that point you would have to kind of either like drop your application or like migrate everything away, while having to deal with removing all of the proprietary things from like Supabase of your application. But then if your application is relatively simple, that should not really be a very big task to achieve as well. So it's trade-offs, right? So you just have to make sure that you make the right choice for your type of application. I just thought it was very important to give you this insight so that you're aware when you're building an app that you consider is a bit of a serious application. I would advise to avoid getting yourself into vendor lock-in very, very quickly by using any proprietary systems. And maybe even consider hosting it yourself from the start, right? So, okay. I think that is enough of covering these topics. If there are any specific questions, please let me know and we'll cover these. No issues there. For now, I want to continue with my world-changing application. So if we look at our current app, so let's go back. Where is our humble words? It's right here. So as we're logged in, it says, okay, our feed is here. We don't have access to any page currently that allows the user to see their information, update their email address, for example, change their password. So there is no like user dashboard. So this page is called the dashboard, but this should really be like main feed or something like that. And this is something that I would like to add, right? So the user currently doesn't really have a home page where they can go and manage their account in any meaningful way, which I think they should, because the users here have created their account, and after that they have no control over it whatsoever. So let's pick this up. So if we go to our project, so our project is still here, it's still open, and we have 1,000 files that are open here, which is amazing. Okay, so let's get to it. So we are here, print working directory, and we are in Humble Words. So we are inside of the project folder, which is fine. We have the dev agent. So I'm gonna go to the product manager or the product owner. I'll go to the product owner and prompt the product owner to add these tasks. So we have, of course, our, where did the tasks go? We need to be, okay, it's inside of our docs. So we have the story. So all of these were completed, right? So I'm gonna tell our PO, the dev agent has implemented all of the, I'm gonna point it to stories. However, our users don't have an account page where they can change their email or their password. Okay, could you please make a user story for that? Also make sure that any related is captured there. Okay, so hold on. Okay, so I'll let it do that. Yeah, sorry. So I did want to show the whole branching thing, which I'll do. So I'll let the product owner make the user story. And then when that's done, before the developer starts doing anything, I'll instruct the developer to create a separate branch for it. It will just run the command that will submit that will create a new branch. and it will check it out. So checking out a branch means that you're currently checking out is like, you check out a book in a library, for example. So you are currently working on that branch. So you kind of take that branch and you're like, okay, I'm currently working inside of this branch. And then also later when we'll be pushing to uh, to GitHub, we're also going to be pushing to that branch. So before we used to say git push origin main. Now origin is going to be the name of the branch that we've created instead of main. Okay, so I do want to add something here. While I'm asking the PO to do this, if, for example, you want to add a feature that will add considerable amount of complexity to your application, or is like um, actual change. So what I'm doing now is basically I'm just creating a page that allows the user to update their email and their password, which is functionality that already exists. So Supabase allows for that already. Um, the only thing that needs to be created is the page, and to make sure that the values from the database are being pulled from Supabase. That the page itself can only be seen by the user that is logged in, and they can only see, like, of course, their information, which is again logic that we already have. These are permissions that we already set up in our schema. So this is not complex at all, right? But if there is functionality that I currently don't have, so let's say, for example, I want to, after this, I want to add the user reporting, right? Because there is already a button for it here, because I mentioned at some point that I want users to be able to report posts and for them to be able to select a number of things that they can say about this post, why they think this should be flagged. But there's no logic here. So there's nothing here that we're currently capturing. There's no dashboard for any admin to see. So if I want to implement that, I would rather go to the architect and tell the architect, okay, these are all of the things that I want to add. So we talked about this reporting feature, which is currently not implemented. I want also that for the reporting, for there to be an admin dashboard where only a user that has the admin privileges. So he will also need to check that, okay, does our database have a table to store the information per user, whether they are an admin or not? And I will need to provide all of the information regarding, okay, what kind of flags are there? Um, and depending on these flags, what kind of information do I want to see on the dashboard? Is there any kind of automated system that will look at these flags and see whether there is something? So let's say I want to say that, okay, if there is a post and within the first 2 hours or whatever that the post has been online, more than 10 people have flagged it, then I want that post to be how do you call it, to be deleted, or I want the user's account to be suspended, where they can't post anything anymore until an admin has reviewed it. Or if within 2 hours only, for example, one person flagged it and no one else did, and it got, for example, more than several hundred views, then we will remove the flag and consider that this person flagged it by accident, or that is this person has some kind of issue with the content of the comment or the post, but no one else did. So that we have a bit of automation, so that not everything that gets flagged, an admin has to actually look into and either approve or deny or something like that. Now, if I want to add a feature like this, it will add a lot of complexity, because most probably we'll have to create migrations for our database to store new information that we currently don't. We have to make sure that admin users can be identified, and we need also to provide some new security measures or tighten security measures to make sure that the admin dashboard is only applicable for admins. So maybe I want to introduce two-factor authentication, that an admin, when they log in, they also need to provide a code through like a mobile app that they've connected, right? Which is again possible through Supabase. So all of these things then become a consideration, and that is considerable more work, and will most probably create more stories than the ones that we even started with, just to add that kind of functionality. So in that case, I would rather ask the architect to do this kind of thinking and like look into the technology stack. What do we currently do? What is the schema? How can we best implement this? Instead of asking the PO to do that. So it has gone through everything. It has added to the README file that this is something that we're currently adding. So actions taken. So it created the new story, which is 1.2. Strangely enough, so I would have expected to move beyond 1.9 or something. Okay, that's fine. Updated tracker, add story 1.2 with dependencies, recommend order. Okay, so highlighted the new story is clean user story and purpose. Acceptance criteria, that is for there to be an account page. So there is the path that is being created here, settings and account. Now it is okay that it's creating like a settings page, but we don't really have a settings page. So this is going to be the only page in the settings, which is again fine. You can change that if that's something that you don't like. Change email with the verification using Supabase. So yeah, if the when the user wants to change their email address, there will be a new email sent out by Supabase to the user where they need to confirm their email address change, and then it will bring them back to the application after they're done. Yeah, so changing password to the current password check. Proper loading, disabled states, redirects when unauthorized. Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. So you have to be authenticated to be able to view the page and the information in it. So it will check when the page is loaded that the current user is actually signed in and that they exist in the database as well. Capture related work. Okay. So a new ZOT schema for authentication, which is also great. Yeah, okay. Looks good. Again, this is not very complex, so it doesn't really require a whole lot of change. One of the very nice things is that it also keeps track of error messages and it makes sure that, okay, if there is no error message, if something goes wrong on that specific page, it would add it as well, which is also really great. Okay, so file change, great. So steps, confirm the route naming and where the menu link should live. Header, profile menu, confirm password strength requirement. Are you sign up? Yeah, so sign up rules is fine. When ready, we can pick this up for implementation. The story contains all wiring and test task to get it done. Yeah, that's fine. So I mean, I'm perfectly fine with it being settings account. That's okay. And it says, okay, where should the link go? So header, profile menu. So I think that's a good idea because we have only a sign out button here. There's like nothing here that the user can access. So like I will say just, okay, please add a button next to the sign out that says account. Path or should call it route. The name suggested is fine. For the user navigation, please add a button in the header view next to the sign out button so that the user can access their profile page. Just so that all of these are captured within the user story. and then we can switch to the dev agent so that the dev can actually implement the story. Yeah, because from its question, it implied that it thinks that there is a navigation bar, which there isn't. So we don't have a like general nav bar that houses all of the buttons. So we have here a component that has the user's message as well as the user handle, which are not aligned for some reason. But again, something we can fix with our dev. Because in here, you see that this is the user's name and this is the user handle, which here are the same, but your name can, of course, be very different than your handle. So normally speaking, just like on Twitter or X, this can be very different. And eventually, this doesn't look like great, but it's fine. At some point, if this is something that we really want to use, I would want to design this very, very differently, where the name is going to be more prominent up here somewhere and the handle a bit more obscure under it. Of course, still clickable and whatnot, but just the design to be a bit different. So yeah, it seems that we're being pinged. So what did it say? Did it already implement the change? So it was searching. I opened the source sign-in button and layout and found where to add the neighboring profile link. Okay. So I'll open the root app. Okay, the header where the sign up. Okay, our research runs. Um, okay. Yeah, okay. So this is again a problem where it's opening a new terminal where it can't run build because build is you are in the wrong directory. You have to navigate into words. Which I can do as well, by the way. So I can just say cd humble words and then run its command from there. So let me stop it because otherwise it will waste a whole bunch of time. So I'm telling it to run build because if I run it here, I still have to point it to the fact that I've run it and it needs to look at the result. While now it will be looking at the result automatically. Okay. Implement that, but also make sure that when the user is on their account page, they have a way to navigate back to the dashboard. Because I mean, it's of course it's obvious, but the agent didn't mention anything about that. So I just want to make sure that we create a bit of persistent like navigation experience where the user should have a nav bar that has the links to bring them to other parts of the application. Otherwise, if they go to the account page and there's no way for them to navigate back, that's not really a great experience. It's like, okay, I'll open the card, UI component, styling. Okay, I'm adding. Okay, so it didn't think about that. So it will now add it to make sure that it's there. And this I find this a bit weird because it sounds as if like it's already implementing the changes instead of just documenting these, which is again a bit of unexpected behavior. Yeah, so it did. So it's like, okay, I'm. I opened the menu. It's like, okay, good call. I've implemented the navigation update and added the account settings page. Okay. Um. Okay. So let's be very clear. So is user story 1.2 now implemented or only documented? Because it started with creating the user story and it immediately starting changing the navigation and whatnot. Short answer, only documented with minimal scaffolding. Okay. Uh, what exists now? So story, full AC task. Okay. So setting, page route. Okay. So it created the routes and yeah, that's fine. Again, I would think that it's better for the dev to do that in one go, but okay. Not implemented yet. Still to build the story. Forms the logic changing. Okay, result validators. Okay. If you want, I can start implementing story tasks now, beginning with validators and the alt helper. Okay, so let's keep everything that is created so far, which is fine. We haven't really validated any of it, which is okay. I mean, normally speaking, we would need to switch to the dev for implementation. But this is again a relatively simple task, so I might as well ask the PO to just implement it because it already has all of the context now, and we don't have to have the dev agent read all of the documentation and go through all of the project structure to arrive at the same point where the PO is already at the moment. So I'm just going to say, please go ahead and implement the story 1.2. Okay, so actually I'm gonna stop it because I just remembered that I didn't ask it to create a new branch. Apologies, so it's good that it didn't do anything massive yet. Okay, please go ahead and implement user story 1.2. However, do that in a new branch called, I'm just gonna call it account page, account dash page. I do want to spell that correctly. Account dash page. Okay, so it's going to look into the current tree, and it's going to, because it wants to understand, okay, where are we now? Because we should be in main if it wants to create a new branch and like check it out. So it's validating where we are. So the terminal says that we are in main. It's like, okay, fine. So I'm gonna git check out -b or -b is for branch. And because you're checking out a branch that doesn't exist, Git will create that branch automatically. So we're going to get that. And, Git is just going to say, okay, just fine. And basically, we will be in a new branch in a bit. So you can see here, okay, switch to new branch, account page. We didn't change anything yet. So at the moment, you can see that we're still in main, but we have a checked out branch, but we haven't committed anything yet to that branch. So when we do that, you will also see that change as well. I also hope that it's helpful for you that I'm like building the entire app and going through the entire process on stream, so that you can follow it. Because the biggest problem in general that you know you I can create a very simplified version of this and show you that, oh yeah, I've done all of this and the application is now built, but you wouldn't see everything that happens while we're doing that, which I think is very, very important to be able to follow. Because in many, many steps, things can break. The agents can do some things that are unexpected, and it's very important for you to notice that and correct it. As models get better, they will be able to do a lot more work without guidance. But again, if you really want to build a functional application, you need to be very present in the build process and understand what's going on, and also stop it when you think it's currently breaking something or doing something that you're not expecting it to do, and ask it maybe to explain itself before it continues. And then if you're like, okay, I understand what you're trying to do, and then you can let it continue. But it's important to kind of remain in control. So it's like, okay, finish the story, but I'll fix lint warnings, add success banner, account settings page, returning from the email verification, rebuild and update the story. Okay, fine. Yeah, okay, so it's annoying for GitHub to continuously, because it's trying to make sure that you're not like overutilizing their AI models, but I think the time that they give is like too brief. Like it's barely been working for not even 20 minutes and it's already complaining that their agent has been working on this task for a long time, which is absolutely not the case. Okay, perfect. So, I mean, this is great because it's doing a great job. So it everything that it updated when we ran build, there were minimal errors. So there were no building errors, just a couple of lint errors. So there were some things that needed to be cleaned up, some functions that were never used, or some like values that were declared that were never actually being put into use. So all of these need to be cleaned up while we're doing that. And for now, it's like, okay, we are moving away from draft. So this is the update here of the user story. And we're now saying that, okay, it's ready for review, which is great. And it now wants to add the edited files as well as commit with this commit message. So the message starts here and ends at the end here. So it's okay. It created basically a summary of what was done, which is great. So we're just going to accept that. So it has now committed to the branch, and we can also push it to GitHub for you to see how we manage multiple branches. So for the moment, it's going to run test, which is great. And we have a couple of errors. Most probably because the tests might not have been fully implemented yet. Okay, so we seem to have a couple of vulnerabilities, but that's okay. All right, so we are having another commit where the test was added. So we are using the proper library to do the testing, and the test has passed, which is great. Again, this is not a massive change, so the tests are fairly minimal. Okay, so it gave a fairly comprehensive update on what it did. What's important here is like, okay, how do we try this? So navigate to settings account while authenticated, change email or something. So let's run dev, npm run dev, yes. And I had it open somewhere in one of the browsers, so I just gonna refresh it, not here, but here. So okay, sorry. All right, let me just sign in very quickly and we'll get going. So uh, all right, so I've signed up with one of the accounts, so everything is still here. But we now have settings and a profile page, which is fine, I guess. I didn't expect that, but okay. So we have a profile that will basically show us most probably settings as well. So I could ask it, okay, why do we have a profile and the settings page if it will bring us to the same location? Um, is there any real difference? So account settings, so there is a button to go back to the dashboard, which works. So we can change our email, we can change our password. So if you go to profile, it brings us, okay. So I see the difference now, which is fine, sorry. So that's okay. So the profile page is basically a home page of the user. So they see only their own posts, but there is no possibility to like post anything from here, which is okay. We can of course add this functionality. Where the settings page is for changing the email address as well as updating our password, which is good. So that works. But here we don't have any navigation. So when the user does go to their profile page, there is no way for them to navigate back to dashboard, which is not great. So I'm going to tell it that. You can also take a screenshot of this and be like, okay, this is how it looks like currently, but we don't have a way to navigate away from the. So I'm going to take a screenshot and include the URL just so that it sees where I am. Report capture. Okay, great. Thank you. Just being polite, why not? And okay, I've tested the changes and the settings page works as expected. However, the user profile page does not include a way to navigate back to the dashboard. I did a screenshot. Okay, so the image is there, and then it should definitely go ahead and update that. Yeah, so it is quite strange that it overlooked adding navigation to this page while I asked specifically to make sure that navigation is possible back to the pages. But again, these are some of the issues of like limited how do you call it, visibility for the relevant things for the AI models. And we have to kind of keep making test it to make sure that it works and that it does what we expect it to do. I'll update. Okay, so it updated it seemingly. That's fine. So also just for your information, I was running the dev server, and while it ran, while it's trying to run build, it will first exit out of my dev environment. So currently the dev server is not running for this to run. We could always, I mean, if we do this manually, we could always have it run the build in a different terminal and keep our dev server up and running. But it's not really a big issue. So this error here is related to the connection. So GitHub is saying that, okay, there is a problem with your request for some reason to their server. So this is not has nothing to do with our build. Because also, as you can see, the AI is now updating the page again and then running build once more because it lost track of where it was. But that's okay. This is also one of the issues while building using these tools. If they go offline or there is an issue with the connection, you will make very little progress if you're not used to building like in a different fashion or without the support of AI. But that's of course, a trade-off that is more than justified with the speed that it does add to the build process. So yeah, it's creating a new commit, which is fine. Let's run dev again. And yeah, let it create its summary. That's perfectly okay. But we can just come in here, update our profile. Yeah, it was already updated because we are on the servers again. So we can say on the user profile page, we can also now go back to dashboard. Yeah, that works. Great. Fine. So that is so let's keep everything that it did. Okay. Change. Yeah, so it's updated. It fixed an issue. Build process. Okay. So we did try it. It works. That's fine. Let's exit out of the dev server with Command C or Control C, I mean, and let's push this to our new branch. Okay. Actually, we already committed git add. I think there is nothing there. Yeah, okay. So the commit was already done, which is fine. So we can basically just say git push origin. Origin is our account page branch. Okay. So if now we go to GitHub, not here, but here, and we go to our application, we refresh this. It says, oh yeah, so okay. So here it says, okay, you have a new branch, right? This was pushed, which is fine. We can, I mean, it's new, so there is nothing really in it. There was nothing in it because it was created new. We're like, okay, we will compare and poll. There is nothing for us to review, so it will show us what was changed since the last time that we submitted it. Well, fine. So creating a pull request just means that a remote source, which is our local development environment, try to change or update this branch. And in here, we are saying that, okay, we are accepting this pull request, and we are going to add it to our branch. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. So this is okay. Maybe I need to explain this a bit better while going through this. So the pull request means that we have a branch that we've checked out, and this branch we are updating, which already exists. So if we go back to our code, which is like the main application, yeah, that's fine. You see that we have two branches. So before you used to have only main, which is the default, and we have the account page branch. Now, this branch itself is currently not being built at all. Because again, we don't really have, we haven't automated anything here. In Vercel, we can add more branches. So inside of our project, we can add more deployments. So if we go to our repository, it's only looking at main, but we can add branches like you see here. And we're like, okay, we might want to build these as well. So we could deploy these. Actually, never mind. This is now seems to be automated as well because it's already here. So it's already deploying our change, which is interesting. Let me visit that. Oh, yeah, of course, I need to sign in separately in here, which is also fine. Just give me 1 second. I mean, as you can see, things do change quickly. And as you're working on something, yeah, sorry, let me just log in very quickly. No, this is not the branch. Okay. So did that do what I thought it did or not? Dashboard, sign out. So if I go to the user path, so let's say settings, account, does that work? No. Okay, interesting. So if I go to sign in, oh yeah, okay, no, so okay, that is actually quite nice. Okay, so you don't even need to do anything, seemingly. It is fully automated, so let me bring you back. It's even simpler than it used to be, which is, again, great. So this is the project that we have already deployed, right? So this is the one that we've been using, which you've seen. But you can see here there's a new branch. And instead of like going through the project URL and whatnot, which was a bit confusing to me, you just click on this branch. So it has its own deployment. As you can see, the deployment is green, so it has already been deployed and it's ready. So when you click on here, it brings you to a dedicated branch branch URL. So you can see here that we have the account page in the name as well. And here it has already all of the functionality, but again, it authenticates you through Vercel, so a normal user can't visit this URL and like just sign in to the app as usual. And this is currently not in our main, right? So this is already hosted and already like built automatically and deployed, so that you can create separate branches and develop on these, deploy them to or at least push them to GitHub, and they will automatically get deployed as a sub branch of your project, which already exists. So this is my main project, and here you can see it says active branches, and here we have the branch that we're working on, which is beautiful. Great. So let me go back to here and let's continue with our pull request. So the pull request means that a user has submitted something that they want to add to your application, which is great. I'm going to go back into the pull request, which we already started, and the all of the checks are here. So this is what the merge pipeline looks like. So if you're trying to merge a feature branch to your main, it will check whether there are any dependencies that are unmet. So if our like not main, but like the feature development branch added a bunch of libraries and these don't exist, so they will need to be installed on the main as well first before you deploy it to main. If there are any conflicts, if there are functions that we have changed or deprecated or whatever that are used in the main branch, it needs to make sure that there is a substitute and that it still works. So there are a lot of checks that need to happen, but here our change again was fairly minor in terms of like actual logic that needs to change. And it says, okay, there are currently no conflicts between the branches. Everything seems to be okay. So we can say merge pull request. So this will merge main and the account page together into a new main branch. Yeah, so we can give it a commit message. Just going to leave this because we've already have all of these in our commit. And yeah, it's basically done. So the deployment is successful. It is merged. There is no more pull request waiting for us. And this will happen. So let's say you develop something and you put it on GitHub, and someone clones your branch and makes some improvements to it or some changes or whatever, and they push it back to you. You will get a pull request from this person. And you can, of course, ignore these, so you don't have to merge everything into your branch. You can also deny these. So if there is a pull request into your project that is, doing weird things that you don't approve, you can just simply deny the merge request and leave it there. And if we go back to our code, you can see that the recent changes was a commit. This branch is one commit behind. Okay, it's the account page. That's fine because now we're on main. So we don't use the account page anymore. At least there's nothing different about the account page. So the account page branch will still exist unless we, of course, delete it. But we can, let's say, for example, we have now put this to main, and we still find a problem after the fact. We can fix it in main, but we can also go back and fix it in the branch itself and make sure that it works before we merge it back into main. It kind of depends on how we want to take that approach. But for now, the account page branch doesn't really do anything specific. So it has the build that used to be separate from main, but now main is identical to main as well as the account page branch. And to prove that, so our application is here. Our build is successful by this success checkbox for Vercel. So this is the Vercel integration that shows us the status of the commit and the build process. So if we go back here so this is no longer relevant, but it will still work. But if we go to the main application here and we refresh it, we should get our new interface. which we do. So we have the profile page again, we have the settings page, which did not used to exist in the old version. Cool. And if we go back to our VS Code, we can simply change um, our like Git working directory, so we can check out main again instead of now working inside of the account page branch, um, and basically continue working or tweaking or fixing things in main. And again, if for all of these commands you don't have to remember them, there is a cheat sheet, or you can find plenty of cheat sheets for Git commands online. I'll actually upload a couple to our Discord server just for reference. But you can also ask your agent, like, okay, I want to go back to developing a main. It will give you the command to run in order to check out main. So um, that is how simple it can be, but also it can, of course, be more, much more grand in terms of like making changes. So everything here is already deployed. Our user story is done, and we can continue in the same fashion, right? So anything that we think is broken, or functionality that we think is missing, or in my case, functionality that's actually missing, which is the reporting thing, I can then go to the PM, or the architect to ask them, okay, here is a list of all of the things that I still want to add to my application. Can you please make sure that we have the user stories and everything prepared? And they'll get this prepared for us. Okay, great. So having said all of that, um, let me very quickly look at the list of things that I wanted to talk about during this stream, because this is the 11th week, and I'm really keen to understand if any of you have built something, and if yes, have you been able to deploy it? Can you share a link to your deployed project somewhere online? And even if you haven't, or you're struggling to get your application built and deployed, do drop me a message in the Discord. You can do this in the dedicated week if you're stuck in something that we do during a specific week, or just drop it in the general chat, and we'll help you out there. Um, okay, one moment. All right. Actually, there is an important topic that I wanted to touch upon, and that is, yeah, how to put it. So we spoke about the different subscriptions for AI models that we can get. There are plenty, and they keep on introducing new ones every now and then. The biggest difference that you need to be aware of is, let me actually pull it up. So windsurf context window paired to let's say Claude. Okay, so there is because I did recommend windsurf during the last session, and I also want to make sure that you understand why developers or people in general would go to Claude Code and subscribe for an expensive plan. Because if you come in here and you want to use the best models that Claude Code provides, you will need to subscribe to their max plan, which costs you $100 a month or even more. So if you want a lot of tokens on a monthly basis, you can pay double that, and you will have double the amount of tokens. You can also use it through API, where you create an API key, and it has a price. So basically, based on your use, there will be an amount of money that you will need to pay. And this can become quite expensive, right? So if you're building a big application and you're like creating a lot of prompts and using a lot of tokens, this can cost you some money. But again, if you're building an application that is lucrative or going to be lucrative, or you have the money to invest in creating such an application, that's of course perfectly fine. But then, why would someone pay this amount of money if they can just subscribe um, to Windsurf for 15 or like $40 a month? Well, there is a big difference, and that is in the context window. So if we look at pricing, right? We've spoken about this before. I'm using Windsurf because I'm subscribed to Windsurf at the moment, and you get 500 prompts. You get a lot of models, which I've already also shown before. And if you haven't seen that, let me show you this very, very quickly. So Windsurf is here. It's not really about loading a project, but I just want to show you that in GitHub, we only have a few models to choose from, right? There is not a whole lot of variety. The new ones are here somewhat, not all of them, but you don't really have a lot of options, right? And it costs $10 a month for a similar kind of use frame as Windsurf. But with Windsurf, you do get a lot more. So you have, if we say, okay, see more, there is a very long list of models that you can choose from. Some of them are even free. So, yeah, sure. Okay. So you can see that you have Claude Sonnet from 3.5, which is already quite a bit old, to 4, to even for Opus, which you can get your own API key for. You can use it through them, 4.1, which costs you 20 credits per request. You have Sonnet 4.0, you have all of the different versions of it. You have 4.5, which is currently on a promo for 1 token per request, or for the Thinking 1 Pro, 1.5 token. You have Code Supernova 1 million, which is completely free. We have DeepSeek, which are all completely free to use. Now here on this one, it does say that this is a 1 million context window, but it of course doesn't say that for the rest. This is where the big difference comes in, because if Windsurf gives you all of these different models, right, for a relatively affordable price, where is the trade-off? So why would everyone just subscribe here and then use all of the different models that they have, or even provide API tokens for the ones that they don't? That's because the context window is different. So Windsurf, even though it's using the same model, it will not give you the same amount of context window for the model to use. So that means that if you're using that model to do a lot of work in one go, at some point you will reach your context window and your agent will lose track of what it's doing because it has now forgotten some of the things that it had stored into its context. And it will go off the rails and it will start doing things that you don't expect, or just like it's like, oh, I forgot what I was doing, can you please tell me again what I was working on? And this is the big difference. So if you want to use a specific model because you think this one is good, or it comes recommended or something like that, and you want to use the absolute best version of it, with the biggest context window, then going to the vendor or the company that makes it, and their subscription will give you the best experience. But then if you're building relatively like small to mid-size applications, and you structure your like documentation properly by using something like BMAD method that we've been using, but also the spec kit by GitHub, which is a lot more loose and is like does much less documentation, but fine. Then you could, in theory, achieve very similar results because you aren't how do I put it? You are not counting on that your AI has a million tokens in context window and you're throwing everything at it, including a lot of documentation and old code and all these kind of things, and hoping that it makes something out of it. You're building a relatively like small to mid-size application. You don't have a whole lot of complexity or old code in your project. And you're not expecting your AI agent to build 3/4 of your application in one go, right? Because this is something that is somewhat achievable with the like most modern uh, like models and like the big context window with like 1 million tokens. But again, do you really want to give your agent a prompt and for it to build half of your application in one go or 3/4 of it? And if by the end of it, because it can take a significant time. So at this current time, you could, in theory, use the latest version of Claude and like give it a very complex like set of applications or like many user stories, and you're like, yeah, this is everything that I want you to do. Everything is documented. Go implement it. And they advertise that the agent can run fully on its own for, I think it was like 3 hours straight without interrupting you or asking you for input or whatnot. So if you've already laid out a plan for it, what it needs to do, it can go away and spend up to 3 hours implementing all of these tasks without you like saying anything to it. Again, this is only available to you if you use the model through the vendor itself, right? Because Windsurf also at some point wants to ask you like, hey, you know, your agent has been working on this task for a long time. It will be significantly longer than with GitHub. But even then, still, right? They don't want to give you all of the usage in the world for the $15 that you're giving them per month. Where, you know, if you are using Claude through Claude Code, then you could theoretically, you know, just give your agent a relatively big task or a list of user stories and walk away from your computer for like an hour and come back, and it should have basically implemented everything that's there, right? So yeah, I just wanted to provide this kind of update because again, like this space changes a lot. Every week, every 2 weeks, there is a new model, there is something new, there is a new, you know, vendor, there is a new way to interact with your APIs and with your agents. So I just wanted you to be aware of even though I personally use Windsurf and I find it good and I find the amount of money that I'm paying, um, it provides me a lot of value, right? But there is a difference, right? And there is a reason why not everyone goes to Windsurf or even Cursor for their subscription, but goes to Claude Code or ChatGPT directly. Because again, it does provide you with advantages, and they have also functionality, so built-in functionality that you, of course, can't get outside of their own platform. So yeah, just wanted to add this there for additional context. And with that, I actually want to end it here for today's stream. It's a bit of a shorter one, but that's perfectly fine because we've really come a long way. And I'm really keen to see the progress that you guys have made, and if you're able to somewhat match the speed at which I've moved in the past 4 to 5 weeks with the app building, with the getting everything up and running, because it will of course be different, right? So I'm building the app, you know, on stream, but again, this is my app, so your application could be less complex, could be more complex. You might get asked certain questions that I'm of course not getting, and you know, because of your interaction with the AI, it like went in a different direction or add some technologies that you might have not expected or whatever. So it's important for you to, again, like, keep on assessing the progress that you're making sure that whenever your agent says, it's best to use this technology or to include this into our project, ask it what that application is or service or framework or whatever it may be. You can also Google it very quickly, just have a quick look, just so that you understand what you're getting yourself into. Because again, if it's in your application, you will have to, utilize it with its good and bad. And at the end of the day, everything has trade-offs, right? So there is no perfect framework, there is no perfect programming language, there is no perfect way of doing things, because everything is subjective. It's subjective based on what you want. It's subjective based on the amount of time that you're willing to invest in it. It is subjective based on the quality that you're looking to deliver. So how do you want your application to look and function, and do you care a lot about the user experience? Yes or no? Do you care a lot about design? Yes or no? Do you care a lot about the code and how it works and how performant your application is? So all of these are considerations, and at the end of the day, you always have to make some trade-offs somewhere, right? As long as these trade-offs don't impact your user experience too much, that's perfectly fine. So yeah, share your thoughts, your progress, and if you manage to launch your application, share that as well in the Discord server, please. And apart from that, I want to thank you again for joining and for watching, and that's it for today. So next week will be our 12th session, which will be the last one. There will be, I'll consolidate some of the things that we've gone through in the past 12 weeks, as well as how we're going to continue with Humble Devs after the 12th week. All right. So again, thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for watching. Happy building, and see you again next week. Take care. Bye bye.